We all have heard about United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we all know the importance of these 17 goals globally. On today's episode, we're going to talk about United Nations SDG number 5, gender equality, and we are going to talk about its importance in Kashmir. Hey guys, I'm your host Muzamil Makbul for 101 North, and I welcome you to another episode of Plain Talk. On the panel first, I have with me Mushtaq Ahmed Sikandar. He is a writer, activist based in Kashmir. Mushtaq is author of many books and has been a strong activist on gender justice. We also have with us Saima Shah, a doctoral fellow of feminist studies based in Kashmir. She also has done a vast research in gender justice and equality. Thank you so much, Mushtaq Sai, for being with me on 101 North.
Thank you for inviting me.
Mushtaq, let's talk about a very important issue right now. This is SDG 5, gender equality. We're going to discuss today, and I want you to let people know: is there any need of gender justice right now?
This is a very pertinent question, and as you very well mentioned, that SDG has mentioned it as their fifth goal.
True.
That they intend to achieve by 2030.
True.
As far as gender justice is concerned, this has been a perpetual struggle regarding gender justice going on in many societies, and now the humanity has evolved to this level where men and women are considered equal, and due to various pragmatic reasons also, like due to globalization and our LPG model, the liberalization, privatization model that the whole capitalistic world follows, it has become incumbent on both the genders, whether men or women, to put or play their part as far as the economic activities of humanity are concerned. So due to the pragmatic reasons as well as due to the evolution of humanity, to this sense where men and women both are considered equal. Historically, men and women were never equal in any society. Women were always supposed to be second-class citizens, or were not granted rights, equal rights. Whether due to the social structure that didn't allow them, or due to religious activities or certain societal norms, women were always supposed to be a bit behind the men. But as I told you, due to the two reasons, one is the economic reasons, due to this globalization, privatization, capitalistic model that most countries of the world now follow, and as well as the humanity has evolved to this level where it's considered quite necessary that men and women be considered equal. So the evolution of humanity to our current level, as well as due to the economic considerations, they have driven the humanity to this course where the need for gender justice is being felt as something that is natural. So earlier it was not considered natural. If you go through Greek philosophy, Plato and others, they didn't even consider women as worthy of being citizens in his state, not to talk about the philosopher king. So same is the case with many religions that may grant women a status, particularly if she is a mother or she is a sister, but not as somebody as an equal compatriot when it comes to the conjugal relationships between spouses, or when it comes to being a sister. So, but now due to various pragmatic reasons, so gender justice, it certainly has become a need and certainly a goal for which the humans and societies should certainly struggle with. But again, it's a very long drawn struggle because the patriarchy and in our subconscious, due to various norms and societal issues and challenges, the gender justice in most countries as a goal is yet to be realized.
Absolutely. And I wanted to talk about gender justice and religion, particularly and precisely about Islam. Is there any compatibility?
Uh, Gender justice, if we look at in the epistemology of Western context, there it had a different kind of evolution. But as far as Islam is concerned, in the Holy Scriptures, particularly Quran and Hadith, and as well as in the eyes of God, the Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, He certainly does not discriminate among people on the basis of their sex. Basically, gender is what? Gender is the social construction that we build around a certain kind of sex, where a few responsibilities and roles are assigned to a certain sex. But as far as the divine wisdom is concerned, there we don't witness such a discrimination. But later on, if we go with the Quranic paradigm, there humans are addressed as al-nas. Or even in the spousal relationship of marriage, Quran uses a gender just term, or a gender neutral term, you can call it the zawj. So it doesn't it translates or zawjan or zawja. So it doesn't carry this cultural baggage that our Persian or Urdu kind of terms like khawan and biwi connotes. So certainly in as far as Islamic this paradigm is concerned, there in Islamic holy texts, particularly the Quran, it addresses both genders, and for salvation, this sex or gender is not necessary. So any person can be salvated who follows the dictates or injunctions or the message that Islam lays forth. So there Islam doesn't discriminate between men and women. But yes, in certain cases, it gives different responsibilities to man and different responsibilities to a woman, particularly when they go in marriage, because even different responsibilities, biology also supports the same, because we as men can't produce or we can't give birth to children. So that is an additional kind of responsibility that only women can do. So in that sense, in that kind of paradigm, you have equality, but the responsibilities somewhere are different for men, and certainly in sense affairs they are different for women. That's why in the role of mother, the woman's status is quite elevated as compared to man. So in that sense, you can say that when it comes to responsibilities, they have certain kind of different roles and rights. But as far as their equality is concerned, the Quran categorically states that for salvation and while addressing men and women, particularly in marriage, it uses the same kind of gender neutral terms. So we can state that yes, Islam and particularly the Quran strives for gender justice, but with different roles and responsibilities that we need to understand in their own context.
Absolutely, with different roles and responsibilities. And let's come to Kashmir now. Has the economic independence empowered women here? Let's talk about from last 10 years.
The economic independence, again, as I stated earlier, that due to the capitalistic model, in the Islamic paradigm, if you will see in the Muslim paradigm, the Quran talks about the rights of men and women. But again, if we will witness or we will read the discourse of gender rights in Quran, for women particularly, the narrative or the discourse is wholly right based. On for men, it's duty based. So in that paradigm, woman certainly as a wife is not supposed to earn. The man is supposed to provide for the family. But when it comes to these pragmatic reasons, though women are not debarred from working outside. Let me make it clear. They're not debarred from economic activities. Only those activities that are allowed.
And would you like to give any examples?
Like a woman can't work in a club, or she can't work in somewhere where alcohol is served, or she can't work in strip kind of club.
But in that case, in Islam, stripper club or any club or alcoholic place is also barred for men as well.
Yes, obviously. But particularly for women, if she earns out of her duty and by selling her body
I got it.
in a hedonistic culture, what we witness in West, so that's much more debate for women. And I was speaking about the context. So the pragmatic reasons, because now it's very difficult for only a single person or the family patriarch to earn and provide for all the members. So the women joined the workforce. But again, what we have witnessed, particularly not only in Kashmir but in whole South Asia and other places also, that women certainly don't have the right over their earnings. If she's earning a salary, in most cases, the husband or in-laws have the right to it. Or we can witness not only here but in other places where women are contributing to the economy, particularly in agricultural societies like ours, where women certainly work in the fields. So how much rights they have over their earnings, because all the earnings and dealings are done by men. So their labor again is unaccounted. And another issue is the domestic work that all women do, and that certainly is unaccounted and unpaid work. They do 24/7. So in that sense, certainly the economic empowerment has not, in my understanding, this independence certainly has not empowered women to that extent where they have become decision makers, or where the property is being registered in their names. So in most cases, you will witness that 90% of the properties, the houses, and other real estate is certainly registered in the name of men, even if women have been contributing to that. So certainly in that sense, this economic independence has not added to the empowerment, to the real empowerment of women in that sense. It may add to a certain sense of dignity, where they may have a limited kind of right to spend their earnings as they intend them to, or if there is a certain kind of divorce or death of their husband, so then maybe it can act as a tool of empowerment. But in most cases, it's being witnessed that economic independence certainly has not added to the empowerment of women, because again the domestic violence continues with these women also. They don't in most cases have the right over their salaries and how to spend it. And also then they are supposed to earn outside and as well as to do the chores at home. So in that sense, she has become, she suffers doubly as compared to those homemakers who just have to work at their home, contribute to these domestic chores. But in most cases, we witness that women, even if they are earning much more higher salaries than their husbands, but the same notion of this patriarchy that the kitchen belongs to women, so they certainly are not empowered in that sense.
Absolutely. And my next question is very important. How do we break this kind of patriarchal system here in Kashmir? Because we have seen it a lot. You might have witnessed it. I have witnessed it a lot. Wherein men don't get involved into chores of daily household things. Women do. How do we precisely break this? And what would be your message to youth out there, since you have been working a lot on gender studies, especially in the context of Southeast Asia? What is your message out there for the youth who are listening to this podcast?
Well, you have yourself been involved very much with the social issues that our society and overall the whole South Asia, or generally the whole world, the women in the whole world are suffering. To understand it, we need to understand the psychology and ideology that drives the patriarchy. It's basically coming from the Greek philosophy, where women certainly were not considered equal. So once those texts were translated into Arabic, these Greek texts, so the Muslims also had this notion, they inculcated this notion of patriarchy, because from Ibn Rushd and others to Al-Ghazali, you can witness in their books, down to Maulana Maududi, how they have reinforced this patriarchal culture, where women certainly are not even given a space in the masjids. They are supposed to be so impure, or supposed to be a source of fitna, that they have to be debarred from the worshipping places. Otherwise, Islam never debars women from praying in public mosques. And then these same kinds of understandings are being taught in madrasas. So you have a certain kind of understanding about woman, where the woman is the other. She is the source of the fitna. She is source of everything vice or everything evil. So with these kinds of notions, the patriarchy gets reinforced and it gets a religious color.
Absolutely.
Again, the patriarchy is there in our society, where we discriminate, particularly in agricultural societies like ours, but that we witness in South Asia. The women were always denied the right in inheritance. So they were never granted any right in inheritance. So that's why this patriarchy in our case is particularly when it gets reinforced by religion. So it certainly needs to have an antidote through religion. Only through the gender justice interpretation of Islam that many scholars have attempted to in the past and are doing now. Even before this term of Islamic feminism became fashionable, we have scholars like Maulana Mumtaz Ali of Deoband, who has written the book Hukukun Niswa in the 19th century. He was a contemporary of Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan, and it created a huge ruckus at that time because it was so progressive, and it stated that women and men certainly have equal rights. That's something that even ulama can't think even in our contemporary times. So unless and until the religious gender just interpretation of religion is not taken by serious ulama, certainly this patriarchy will continue to reinforce because it's being backed by religion. So the gender justice interpretation of religion will do the work, because we witness even in the prophetic times how much women were empowered. Even our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he indulged in domestic chores. He used to take care of all his mundane needs that men, even men like us, shirk away from doing. So we don't contribute particularly to the domestic chores of our mothers or help our sisters, and not to talk about our would-be wives. So in that sense, it's a multi-facet challenge. So on social level, we have to be practically engaged in these domestic chores, and then on ideological level, you have to fight with it, and then also whatever has been inculcated in our subconscious due to hundreds of years of these practices, they have to be just weeded out. But it will take time. But we have to start by educating ourselves and our families and others. Only then this struggle for gender justice can be realized. From Islamic perspective, if you will understand that, as I earlier mentioned, that Quranic discourse about woman is right-based. Suppose as a wife, she is not supposed to earn and provide for the family. Even she can ask for baby sting. She can demand money if she's babysitting or she's breastfeeding the child, and then one has to provide for her needs if she is married. So, but these kinds, and then she has a right in inheritance. Then she is supposed to get the meher from husband, and then she is also entitled to 1/8 portion of the property of her husband. So these kinds of rights certainly are not. And then regarding divorce and others, she has again got her own free will and rights. But these kinds of rights that Quran has granted women have certainly been taken away by a patriarchal interpretation over the centuries. Absolutely. By different ulama, different sectarian ulama. So again, the need is for the gender just interpretation of Islam. Only then it can help. And as far as this patriarchy is concerned, we witness it daily in our lives.
Lives.
Suppose a daughter-in-law is being uh, discriminated by mother-in-law. Both are women.
True.
So this can answer another question that if we have more women in our workforce,
True. True.
that again comes again and again that we need to provide reservation for women. We need to make more and more women available in the public spaces, in politics and other such issues. Only then we can fight patriarchy. But I don't see that fighting patriarchy and giving women reservation can go hand in hand together. We need to have gender just men and women.
True.
Even a man like Ayub Khan in Pakistan. He passed gender just laws in 1960s regarding these Muslim personal family laws. So he was a man. He did a lot of work related to women. Similarly, Maulana Mumtaz Ali Khan, he wrote this book, Hukuk Zawjain, that espoused for women's rights. So we don't need to make it a man versus woman kind of tussle, because patriarchy operates both through men and women. So we need to inculcate gender just values among our youth and among our both men and women, because this fight is not men versus women as a certain radical brand of feminism tries to portray it, because both are victims. Men as well as women are victims of patriarchy, so they need to together fight against it. So this fight has to be on various levels. As I deliberated earlier, on religious levels, we have to provide spaces for women in mosques, in other places. And how many women muftis we have come across? Because again, women again have a right to interpret Quran, Hadith. If they are competent enough, they can give fatwas also, and they can address to women's issues. But again, that domain again has been appropriated by males. So these steps need to be taken, and on social level, we need to make these gender just kind of issues more relevant through our own, particularly through our own activities as well as through our own practical examples, like helping our mothers or the women in the family with domestic chores, as our Prophet used to do. So that ways, practically as well as ideologically, we need to fight this patriarchy that has been reinforced in centuries.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mushtaq. And I wanted to mention a very important point here. We have a lot of alimas here in Kashmir, across the globe. But I'm talking about Kashmir right now. We have a lot of alimas, but we never have seen any video, doing rounds on social media about them, talking to, a group of women about Islam, about rights. Do you think somehow non-for-profit organizations or Islamic scholars, be it men or women both, have failed to address the youth and society about this important issue of gender justice?
Basically, what happens in this case is that the women, particularly if they have studied, they have become alimas in madrasas, there they have been inculcated with this sense that they are supposed to maintain docility.
But I do understand, I do understand the niqab, the parda, and being within a very small confined zone. But do you think it is necessary for women also to come on social media platform and to reach out thousands and thousands of people across the globe?
Obviously, they should do. Like we have example of a lady like Farhat Hashmi. She's doing a good job. Dalia Mujahid is doing something. Yasmin Mujahid is doing something similar kind of things. But yes, when it comes to Kashmir, and particularly the women who have become alimas in a particular sectarian madrasas, there they say that even the voice of a woman is under satar, or it's aura. So they desist women from addressing the social issues or even religious issues. So when her voice is again aura or satar, so how she is supposed to address on social media or make videos and other such things. But these issues need to be broken down. These issues need to be taken head along, because we have witnessed even in Islamic history, we have a very empowered woman like Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha leading during this Jang-e-Jamal, or the Battle of Camel, thousands of Sahabas in their fight. Or later on we have for many women, caliphs or queens. Like in Egypt, we had Shajaratul Dur. Even in India, we have women like Razia Sultana or Begums of Bhopal, who ruled a number of states for centuries. So we need to understand that these restrictions have been put upon by the society and patriarchy, where women are being confined to just a few roles that are just related to their attendance to the domestic affairs and rearing of the children. But women certainly have proved over centuries their mettle in different fields. And certainly in case of these alimas, they certainly need to break this stereotype and come along and address these issues, that because these issues are related to them also. They are also victimized. They are also marginalized in most cases. So unless and until they don't confront these issues head along, they will continue to persist in the society.
True. Mushtaqul Haq Skandar, thank you so much for joining us on 101 North, and I really appreciate you talking about this topic, which is so dear to me, gender justice. And we hope to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you so much. We have a great time ahead. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
We will be back with Saima Shah very soon. Keep listening to 101 North. Thank you so much, Saima, for joining us on our podcast.
Muzammil, thank you so much for having me today in 101 North.
You're welcome. Trust me, today's episode won't be completed without having a female voice on the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Saima, I wanted to know your perspective about gender rights and gender equality. Is there anything called gender equality in India or in Kashmir? Do we really see it on the ground?
When we talk about gender rights or gender equality, as you said, that forms an important part of the Sustainable Development Goals.
True.
So we see that and try to analyze the same in the context of the world we live in. I mean, the larger South Asian region. I think the issue becomes all the more very crucial and complex at the same time. Now, there can be various reasons for it. One of the reasons, for example, if you take the case of India, is that India is a diverse society, a diverse country. Women in India are not homogeneous. There are multiple factors that are determining their life choices, their lived realities. India, there are different castes, there are different religions, languages, even different classes, different ethnicities. So when there is so much of diversity around, that means the problem you're dealing with is not a simple one. We're dealing with a very complex phenomenon. The problem is, we need to understand that the problem is deeply rooted into the very fabric of our society, the relations, the institutions, various other aspects related to our existence. That's why perhaps in India we see that in spite of so many efforts made by the government as well as the non-governmental institutions, the laws, we have seen that there is a huge gap between the efforts made and the ground realities. Although we have made some progress, but there is a lot that needs to be done, and sometimes we see that we have not been able to make much difference. Uh, I'll give you an example here. If you see the case of Nirbhaya's recently we saw that Nirbhaya's rape convicts were hanged,
True.
but still, as of today, rapes in India are a reality. So we need to analyze and identify these gaps first. Then only, in my perspective, we'll be able to make some difference in reality. Um, so if we want to bring a change in the society in India, uh, that will come down to Kashmir as well.
True.
So these strategies that have been formulated, in my opinion, they should be made keeping them in consonance with the specific context in which we want to apply them or implement them. In this sense, for me, I think community intervention is very important if we want to ensure gender equality in India. Uh, State can make laws. It has to make laws, and in fact, state is one of the main institutions that has the power to ensure gender justice,
Okay.
as many of the feminists endorse. Uh, as in India, we see that there are very stringent laws already existing.
True.
But in spite of that, we see crimes against women increasing. So this poses a serious question. And for me, I see that there has to be an approach, change in approach to this problem. So the approach should not be from a top-down. It should not be in a top-down perspective. Rather, a bottom-up approach should be applied.
Okay.
Meaning that we need to begin with the communities. We need to begin with the villages, with the societies, with the families. So that's how I guess we can make a difference.
I understand. I understand. I
Now,
totally agree.
coming to the context of Kashmir, as you asked me, I would say there is no much difference. Women are discriminated.
What basically I'm trying to talk about Kashmir is,
Yeah.
do we really see gender equality here? Do we see women going in different fields, participating, joining in jobs, in armed forces or anywhere else? You know, do we see participation of women everywhere?
Well,
And is it celebrated? Is it accepted? And is there is there acceptance on the ground? That's what my point is.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about Kashmir, although you may see that women come out, women are joining new jobs as well, women are asserting for their rights as well. There is a growing consciousness. But still, I would say that this is not much. This is not what gender equality is all about.
Okay.
I see Kashmir as the same society as the other South Asian societies are.
True.
Women are discriminated. Let's face it and let's accept it. Above all, it's a disturbed place that makes the issue more complex. So there are so many factors at play in Kashmir as well that have a bearing upon the lives of Kashmiri women. So my perspective is that we can see that women's issues have been, when we talk about women's issue in Kashmir, for me, it has been overshadowed for a longer period of time.
Absolutely.
And by some issues that somehow have been given more consideration or more importance. Although those issues are also important, but for me, every issue has its own critical importance.
Right.
There are so many issues related to women here that need an urgent attention. But because of the overall disturbing environment we have, I see we have, and I believe that we have actually failed to address and even acknowledge those issues. So, well, we can say that over some time, there has been a change in the scenario. There's some consciousness developing with respect to the rights of women. But I would say it's been very late also. Therefore, we should not be waiting. It's time is now to deal with these issues. To be more open about the women's issues, the issues women face in Kashmiri society.
Absolutely.
Well, being a woman, I can say that um, if not next, but every next to the next home in Kashmir has a story of some kind of domestic violence.
That's what I was
That may,
going to ask. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, that may not always take a violent turn.
Hmm.
uh, Violence is not always violent. Let's understand it. There's a serious psychological violence happening around.
True.
There are issues related to economic dependency of women as well.
Hmm.
There are issues related to the most neglected aspect that's related to the lives of Kashmiri women, that is the reproductive health of the women. Uh, Even there are various other issues related to women. Like, for example, we have the religious rights of Kashmiri women.
True.
These are some kinds of issues that have not been given much attention. Just mere giving opportunities to join jobs does not
It won't work
ensure
at all. Yeah.
equality in the society. Yes, we need to dig deeper and address the root causes, actually, the basic problems. You know, uh, us, we are a Muslim-dominated society in Kashmir,
Hmm.
so women here, uh, but unfortunately, women here do not even know what their religious rights are.
Okay.
They have been kept ignorant, and I believe this has been deliberate
Hmm.
in some sense, as the case with the entire Muslim population in the South Asian region has been. We have a simple example. For example, uh, we saw recently some controversies around the problem of instant triple talaq in India.
True. True.
The practice that was prevalent in among some sects of Indian Muslims
A lot. Yeah.
in India. Yeah. Uh, and the problem we recently saw with respect to the rights of Muslim women to worship in the mosque. So when we try and look to these problems, we see that it's not Islam, it's we Muslims, uh, that how actually it's the Muslim men who have discriminated against
Discriminated.
Muslim
Yes.
women. Islam undoubtedly has given a dignified status to women.
Hmm.
In fact, Islam is the first religion to give property rights to women. Islam even is the first religion that stood against the practice that was prevalent in Arabia that time, when the girl child who was born was buried alive. So, similarly, there are so many provisions, there are so many
Hmm.
injunctions in Islam that reflects its gender just nature. But unfortunately, it's the patriarchy in our own societies, which is so deeply rooted.
Hmm.
Uh, we have been very upfront in suppressing that gender just sense of our religion. That's why we see that the problems like instant triple talaq arising in our society, wherein women were given divorce but just through an SMS or
Or WhatsApp
uh,
messages.
yes, which is actually clearly a violation to the basic
True.
injunctions
True.
of Islam.
True.
Islam does not endorse such practices.
True.
There is a clearly and wisely guided process of how to go for such a thing, such a
Hmm.
decision.
Hmm.
But these things are not followed because our societies are so deeply patriarchal that we have been mixing things with our religion.
Hmm.
So Muslim men have, I see it's the Muslim men who have discriminated against Muslim women, both in India as well as in Kashmir.
Kashmir. And Saima, I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you a very important question here. Do you think non-governmental organizations or state departments who look after the women empowerment and
Mhm.
and independent organizations and activists is so dear to my heart, few of them who work on these
Mhm.
women issues? Do you think they are
Mhm.
doing enough, or the religious scholars are doing enough in Kashmir to put forward a very valuable point wherein everyone can
Mhm.
understand how important these rights are?
Mhm. In case of India, and in case of Kashmir, as in various other parts of India as well, and largely in various other societies in South Asia, I see a similar kind of trend emerging, wherein the non-governmental institutions have been playing a very important role.
Okay.
In Kashmir as well, we see over some time, if we see some kind of an organizing or some kind of an asserting for the rights of women, it's been mainly because of the non-governmental, the efforts made by the civil rights activists, non-governmental institutions, the NGOs, and all other concerned bodies working for in such field. So I think they have been playing a very important role, and they need to be given credit for it.
And what about religious institutions and religious scholars? Have they done enough, or are they coming forward to talk about this issue openly, joining and inviting women?
Sorry, can you repeat it, please?
I said, are religious organizations or religious institutions and scholars doing enough on to work on this issue? Are they inviting women to talk about openly on the ground?
Well, I would say that enough has not been done so far. There is so much to do, so much more to do. So even if some of the efforts are being, I would say yes, things are changing now. People are making efforts. These institutions, individuals, they're coming forward. But that's not enough. We need a robust a movement, a kind of a movement wherein women are given more chance to bring their own voices. They should be given platforms as well to speak out what they face, what their problems actually are, and how they feel they can be rectified also.
Okay, yeah, and my another important question is the word feminism. The term feminism has been described a lot over internet, in papers across the globe.
Yes.
How do you see this term feminism getting applied in Kashmir? Do we really have feminism here? And first of all, I need to understand what it is.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about feminism, I would say, like various other concepts we see in social sciences, there's been contestations with respect to its meaning because it has been interpreted differently. It's been defined differently. But there's also been an equal misinterpretation of the word as well, the term as well. We need to make a difference here that feminism is not all a radical way of changing things.
Okay.
It means much more than that.
Okay.
They have had different understandings of feminism. For example, in South Asia, we see now a new wave of feminism emerging, wherein feminism is not confined to the Western societies only. Feminism is defined as a historical term where its origins even go back to the centuries when women, in their own ways, in their own limited resources, were speaking out for speaking about their own problems, the problems the other women in their societies were dealing with. We have in Kashmir, for example, Laluded, a great voice talking about how she was treated by her in-laws, the domestic violence she faced. So we have similar various other examples. So it's not always that we have to look at the negative aspects that have been associated with a particular term. What we need to give more importance to is the essence of this movement, what we understand as feminist movement. It's been something that has changed a lot in the entire world.
I agree.
If we see women today everywhere, even if we see women talking about their rights, it's somewhere it's because of that, because women were given a platform. So they need, I think, is to distinguish between what feminism as an essence means, and what feminism as has been portrayed as something which is more political in nature. So we need to make a distinction between it, which is the point I would like to make here is that we need to understand that feminism is more than being radical, it's more than being political, and it's more than being Western at the same time.
Absolutely. And I think if religious
Yeah.
scholars would come forward and they would break
Mhm.
down what the rights in Islam for women are, and make
Mhm.
people and masses understand, and women should also join more and more every section of this society, then only
Yes.
changes
Yes.
would come
Exactly.
forward. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Saima, for joining us on 101 North podcast, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank
Bye.
you.
That is all from today's episode. We will be back with another one. Till then, stay home, stay safe. You have a lovely time ahead. And keep listening to 101 North.